تفضل.
I like the Arabic.
Hey guys, welcome back to Keep It 99, the most edifying podcast in the world. And I'm here today, live from Cairo in Egypt, with Michael and Isaac, recurring guest again on the podcast. If you've not seen their last podcast or any of them, they're all three of them will be linked up here. So you can make sure to go watch that before you watch this one. So we are concluding a week-long mission trip here in Egypt, and it's been quite a week, quite an experience. So kind of just wanted to know your guys' thoughts on it, what you learned from it, how it has changed your perspective on things, if it has, and just kind of like, that type of stuff. So my first question is, for both of you guys, like, what was your favorite moment from this trip? I'll start with you, Michael.
That's tough because there's so
Michael,
many.
can you, Michael?
Oh, sorry. Please edit that out. That's tough because there's so many. But if I had to pick, the first day we did visitations, and there was a specific visitation where I won't get into too much detail, but it was very challenging. And like our family even got a little emotional. The family, they had a very tragic accident, like something you can't make up in a movie, and seeing the lady say that, like, I'll still trust in God, was like mind numbing. And just to give you some perspective, like they've been roasting my Arabic the entire trip. Like, I know no Arabic at all. So we had a translator with us, and then the translator asked us, do you want me to translate what this lady's telling? Like, it was that serious. But seeing her still say that she's gonna trust in God was like, I can't trust in God, like, in terms of getting into college and stuff like that. But seeing her say that made the little hairs on my back stand up. Like, it was so cool. So that was probably my favorite moment on the trip.
For me, I'm sorry. I really enjoyed. It was really, really specific, but the liturgy at Makatam. But from the mission aspect, I really also enjoyed the house visits and the 21 Martyrs church. And I think the reason I'm putting those two together is just because they, in both situations, the people in the house visits and the 21 Martyrs, they both had such joy for God and just so much trust and joy. And it's at a level that I can't ever achieve. It's just so high. That's it.
Yeah, going back to what Michael said about the visitations, and it's very interesting to see, because you see people, of all different levels of faith, even when you're visiting. Right? Obviously, all these people who have literally nothing. I mean, they've got. I mean, nothing is an understatement. How little they have, and they're so joyful, so happy. And then you have people who maybe aren't as joyful, aren't as happy. So you see kind of both sides of it. And I think it's very interesting to make that contrast and see that joy and faith in God, the people that we saw that had the most faith in God were the people that served God the most with what they had. I'll give you an example. One of the house visits we went to, there's this guy, this older man, he's probably in his 60s, and he has 3 kids. 2 sons. Is that door?
Yeah.
All right, go open it. Sorry about that. There's this older man, probably in his 60s, and he had 3 kids, 2 sons and a daughter, and all 3 of them were working in a monastery. And he had one son that was a really good painter, iconographer, so he painted icons on his dad's wall, and they were let me say, they were quality. Really, really, really good. In this house where it's the floor is not, there's not a floor, and it's almost disgusting to be living in such a situation. But the beauty of the 2 icons that he drew, he painted in the room, or wrote in the room, sorry, there's nothing like it. And it's he was so joyful that his son was able to serve at that capacity. Whereas like another story that's kind of to show the opposite. was that there was like a family where there was a mom and she had a daughter who had epilepsy, I think it was. They called it kahraba, which literally means electricity, but that's not. I mean, obviously, electricity is not a disease, but I think it's epilepsy. And like she was like, thank God was not like in her vocabulary, not to judge her or anything, but it was weird to see because it's like you see all these people who are like thank God, thank God, thank God, and she was like, no, we need this, we need this, we need that, which like she has every right to say that, right? They live in nothing and daughter has epilepsy, whatever. So it's just interesting to see that contrast. That like I think maybe in a place like this, like the proportion of people who are more thankful is way greater, but there's still that, the opposite. So it's interesting to see like kind of the two sides to the equation, like the two sides, of the coin. And like what Isaac said, honestly, my favorite part was the Church of the 21 Martyrs. That's my favorite part. I really felt like you could really feel God's presence there. Like it's hard to explain. Like you could really feel, like the because I mean they showed like the clothes were out, the stuff they like had, like it was very real. This is something that happened in 2015, right? Was that 2014?
Very recent.
Recently.
Yeah.
Like within the last 10 years. And it's like, it's crazy to think that we still live in a world where that can happen, where it's like, people like St. George, St. Mina, like we say, oh, they got tortured this, they got killed like this. And we kind of like say it and whatever, like we don't really understand what that meant. But then we see these 21 and we can literally, like, there's a video, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you can see how gruesome and how disgusting and how like vile it really is and what it really means to stand up for your faith. So I think that was kind of, my favorite part of the trip. Yeah, so for both of you guys, like, what is your main takeaway that gets applied into your personal life after a trip like this?
تفضل.
I like the Arabic. So 2. Number 1 is that like on this trip, like we did quiet times daily, and that's something I want to continue because I really felt a common theme that God was trying to tell me, to love my enemies, and that's something we say, and that's nice to put on a T-shirt. But if you actually read it as it's intended to be like understood, it sounds like crazy for lack of a better word. But I really felt God trying to teach me that, and I couldn't have like understood that lesson without him telling me through the daily quiet times. Normally I'm one day on, one day off, but the consistency like really helped me hear his voice. And the second thing is we were all paired with like Cairo service through this amazing organization called Shepherd and Mother of Light. And these Cairo servants would take us house to house, and they had full reports on every single house. This person struggling with this, that person struggling with that. And they were so dedicated to their service. And then like for me in America, sometimes it's easy for me to let things go in my service or to think I only have the capacity to serve in this way. And there is some like truth to that, like as a college student, but I definitely think I don't give myself enough credit, and there's so much I can do if I really had the faith and the belief that I could do it. So I guess the 2 things would be quiet time daily, and then the second thing would be to not underestimate what I can do and how much I can truly love God.
Yeah, for me, Abuna kept saying, like, you ask God why you're here, and he'll show you in Minya. Like, he'll tell you in Minya, he won't tell you anywhere else because you're there. And for me, what I heard personally is that, every mission trip I go on, every, strong church service I attend, whatever it may be, I tell myself how I'm going to change and, what I'm going to do to improve, and then I just go back and I live the same life. But I feel like being here in Egypt really, it changed that for me, and that I'll go back home and I will change. Like, I'm not going to just waste my life going about saying I'm going to do something and not doing it. Like, it's like there's change that's going to happen. And like you said at the end, there's no bar for our service. There's no limit. We have to remove that bar for ourselves because we're our biggest limit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to kind of summarize those 2 points, like the quiet time is super important. I think a lot of times on mission trips, like a lot of people, like they just focus on the service and never remember to fill yourself. So I think it's very important to, to have the quiet times, to be feeling yourself at all times, because that's the only way you're going to be able to serve the people around you. And like, when it comes to like, what's my purpose on this trip? Like I've been on not a lot, but I've been on multiple mission trips. And something for me, like what I've realized is like, the first one you just kind of go and you're like, oh, this is cool. Like I kind of enjoyed serving people. And then the second one, it's like I really enjoyed serving people, and like, it's almost like it grows. It's like a seed that keeps growing and growing and growing. So I think like you're not going to feel the full presence of what God is doing. You're not going to see every single miracle that's happening the first time. Right? You have to really experience it over and over again and live it in your daily life in order for you to really see what's going on. Like I remember one of the kids that like we have a lot of kids with us. One of the kids was like, like I felt like we didn't make much of a difference, but I know that they will remember what we were doing, or something along those lines, where it's like what we actually did, like an objective value, is very low. Like we were there for 3 days. We didn't really do much, but the impact that we can leave, or we have the ability to leave on these people's lives, is like outstanding, because to them it's like they live in this little world that they live in, and there's a lot of bad in it, and they don't really see all the good that can come out of it. Whereas we're in America, we see a lot of good and we always complain about it. So we can take that good and that like good experience, and we can kind of show them like, there is better than this in this world. There is, and it's kind of like a motivation and encouragement for all of them. So when it comes to mission trips in general, and we went to one in Atlanta together, and it was an experience, knowing that there's people like this in our backyards, and not backyards, you know what I mean, like nearby. And so now that we're across the pond, across the globe, and the same thing happens. I mean, you see the same thing in Egypt. Egypt's very similar. I mean, you see there's very rich people and there's very poor people, right? There's a very high middle class, and it's very, weird to see. It's not weird, but it's interesting to see how it's like there's all these people in Cairo that are like super, 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 super successful. And you go down to Minya or Malawi or Matai or whatever, and it's like, very, no one really has a lot. Whereas in America, it's kind of like, in the same city, you have people who have a lot and have a little, like next door neighbors even. So what is that kind of, like, what difference does that kind of make in the service to you guys? And what difference does it make, like, from a cultural standpoint, do you guys think?
So the way I think about it, if I'm going based off of just where we are globally, not based on how they're treated, because that's like, there's poor people in America that are treated well and bad, and the same thing applies for Egypt, I think. But, and I don't know if this is really good to say, but in America, I feel like there's more opportunity, there's more you can do to get out of the situation you're in than in Egypt. In Egypt, there's persecution, there's not a lot of opportunity, but in America, there is that. And this is purely not based on like how you're treated, because it's just like different. But that's how I feel.
So you're saying kind of like in America in general, there's more opportunity for people to kind of get out of that life, whereas here it's there's a lot more barriers in the way.
I think so. But in terms of service, I guess, so that was your question?
Service and culture leaves both.
Yeah. So I guess that's the culture part. But like service, you don't have to travel to Egypt to serve these people. Like you said, there are people in our backyards that we can serve like this. Like in DC, we do these mission trips, in Atlanta. And it's good to do these mission trips to like keep you at a spiritual high. Because if you don't do these like service trips, mission trips, then you're like, you can only grow so much, I think.
Well, I don't know about you can only grow so much, but I do agree with you that it's very important. I think, like, in my personal opinion, I think it should be a requirement to graduate high school. Regardless of your religion, just go on a sort of service trip outside of America, because I think it changes your perspective on everything in life.
So, in 2015, how old was I? I think I was like in 6th grade or something like that.
That's how many years? 8 years ago. So you were 10, third
10.
grade.
So I was 10. And then my grandfather, who was like a true saint, like he recently passed away, but like a true saint, took me to Egypt, and he did so much with the poor. Like I can go on and on about how much he did with the poor, but he's like, I need to take the kids to the poor villages. Like they're spoiled. Like like that's what he said. Like they're spoiled. They don't know all the blessings they had. So he took us in a 4-hour car ride. No AC, it was horrible. And then we got to the poor villages. And I still remember the moment of stepping into the hut as a 10-year-old. That's what I wrote my college essay about. And just being overwhelmed with emotion. Like, I couldn't take it. Like, my mom remembers me, like, just bawling. Because as, like, kids in America, like, we don't know any better. Like, we haven't seen anything to this extent of, like, houses or like huts without a roof. Like I didn't know that existed. So I definitely think it's important for us to go on these service trips. So that story just shows like why I think every American kid needs to go abroad and see that the world is not just America. Like I was like spoiled by ignorance. Like I didn't know like all the blessings I had just to live in America and to have access to water, to have access to food. Like that's more than like villages can say. Like just villages. I had no idea. And that's why that trip was so formative into who I am. I really love that point that you said, Isaiah, that we all need to go abroad and see the blessings we have just to live in the country that we live in.
And the thing about mission trips is when you live the life of the people. Like I know here we didn't really do that because we have a lot of little kids. We can't be living in we have to be living in a hotel or it wouldn't end well. But I remember in Zambia, like we were living like in the church house, and let me tell you, there was some interesting arrangements that were in that house, that like the littlest things, like showering, using the toilet, washing your hands, like things that you like in America you have no barrier to. There it's like, in order to take a shower, like give you an example, like what my bathroom looked like when I was in Zambia. It's a walk-in. There's no door, so you take the room with it's like a bunk bed room, so a lot of beds. Flat ground into the bathroom. The bathroom is maybe as big as the couch you're sitting on, like in terms of lengthwise. And you have a toilet like where I'm sitting, like a sink next to your head, and a shower like right above you. So in order to shower, you have to sit on the toilet, and like when you're sitting on the toilet, you have to like sit like this because the sink is like above your head, and it's like it's stupid because it's like, and then when you take a shower, all the water runs into the room, so you can't leave yourself on the floor. So it's like it's all these little things, little inconveniences that are just so hard to get by. And I think I remember I said this a couple days ago where it's like we're talking about like why life is so hard in those villages. It's not because they don't have access to social media. It's not because they don't have access to the internet. It's because they don't have access to those little inconveniences. Like they can have clean water, they can have clean food, but it's about the little things, like the fact that the ground's not paved. Like think about the number of injuries that happen. The fact that, like they don't have floors in their houses. The fact that, their stairs are like 20 feet high. Like every step.
They don't have soap to wash their hands.
They don't have soap to wash their hands. Like I feel like, everywhere we go, like every single time I take a step, like upstairs, like I'm climbing a ladder every time I want to go up one step. So it's like all those little inconveniences that we never, ever, ever think about. Those are the ones that are the most annoying, and those are the ones that we complain about the most. Whereas they're thankful for everything. So I think that's why it's imperative, in my opinion, that anyone under the age of 25 in America should at least have gone twice on a service trip abroad. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I think that's just my personal opinion. So, talking about personal opinions, what is like when you guys see the service that's being done by the Shepherd Mother of Light? In your opinion, like, because we got mixed feedback from people who were talking to us the past couple days about it. What are you guys' opinions on how we can take some of the things that they do and apply it to service in America?
Go ahead.
That's a tough one. God bless these servants, honestly. They do so much for us and for them.
Think about like the VBS that we went to.
I know.
I mean, these are servants who are like well into their 20s, like in 30s. They don't have to be doing this, and for like 6 hours, no AC, in 100-degree weather, bouncing around, jumping around, playing with the kids for 6 hour, 2-3 hour sessions. They're repeating themselves too.
They do a lot.
Like, listen. I would never. I like personally. There's no way. We have like summer camp in Atlanta. It's from 8 to 5. By 10 o'clock, I'm done. Like by 10 o'clock, like I already want to go home. And like they're so low energy. Everyone's just sitting around. All the servants are just sitting around, just watching the kids do whatever. And like, as long as they don't die, that's like my mentality. Whereas here, it's like, no, they need to have the best time of their lives every single second of these 6 hours. So I don't know how they do it, but you can continue.
I think that goes back to like the limit that we place on ourselves. Like these servants, they live this life, so it's easier for them to like do these things because this is like it's their job. But obviously they don't have to. But I don't know. I think we place a limit on ourselves, and then they don't. So they have the ability to just do so much more because they don't have that limit on themselves. But I don't know if that answers.
No, for sure. And just to like give your viewers some perspective, so this organization called Shepherd and Mother of Light is based in Cairo and has all these servants in Cairo, and they go to Minya like once a week and visit these houses, come up with reports on the houses. They don't like what I loved about them the most is they build a relationship with these people, and they actually don't give them handouts. Their job is they do their best to get them a job or help them start a business. So they're doing more, like the easiest thing to do would just be to give them money and then to like give up. But they actually have a relationship with these people. Say start a business, here's advice for starting the business, here's money to help you start your business. So obviously they do give them a lot of financial support, but that's just level one. They're like they do so much for these people, like aside from the financial support. So to your question, I struggle a lot with it because I was so inspired by these servants, and I was like what can I do as an incoming freshman at a university? And obviously it can't look like that. Like there's just no way. Like, but I feel like it comes from like an attitude or like a genuineness that they had. Like we all had the same reaction the first day. The poverty is crazy, and these servants are incredible. Like I think my dad told me he wants to be a Cairo servant when he grows up. Like that's what he said. So we are all so inspired. So I guess like what I would say is just to be all into whatever you're doing or be genuine to what you're doing. Don't do it to go through the motions. Like I feel like if I was in their shoes, I'd just give them the money and then that's it. But no, they're actually, how can I help you? How can I help you start your business? How can I help you find a doctor for your sick kid? Like they're going above and beyond, which I feel like in America, like for the equivalent, we just give them the money and then like khalas, another Arabic word for you. So that's my takeaway is whatever you're doing, do it 110%.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like it's not about what we do because obviously we can't. Like, this wouldn't work. Like it's a different culture, different society. But whatever we are doing, it's all in. It doesn't matter. We're all in. Like there's no question about it. And I think that something else I learned is that, not that I learned, but that I saw, like really saw, is that there's a saying where it's like, the service isn't on your time. Your time is on this. Like the service doesn't, like it's not when you feel like it. I forget what the saying was. But it's like
not 10 to 12 on Sunday.
Exactly. It's not on your time. Like you're on the service's time. That's what it is. When the service has a start and a finish, you're there from start to finish. There's no question. Like it's not when I feel like it. And I think in America we have a lot of I feel like it when we serve, and I like myself foremost. Like, you know, if I don't want to deal with kids, I don't deal with kids. Like, that's just like what I do. Whereas here, it's like if they don't want to deal with kids, they deal with kids. Like, they don't have a choice, right? They're doing it because of God's sake. They're not doing it because of their sake or even the kids' sake, which I think is also very important. Where it's like we really have to put God in the center of our service and in the center of our lives, right? Like, we can do things for others, but God has to be the reason behind all of it. It can't just be like, you know, because of this person or because of that person. No, it's because of God, and these people benefit and I benefit, type of thing. So, I mean, that's all the questions I have. If you have anything else you wanted to say, wanted to share. It is a short podcast because we are on a little bit of a time crunch. But
Do you guys want to talk about next steps when we go home?
we can talk about next steps.
But you guys go.
I'm
suggesting it, but
because you're the host now.
yeah.
I'll go first because you guys answered a lot of questions today. Next steps. Next steps is a great question. Because I think for me, like, I'll talk for myself. Like, I think it's gonna sound crazy, but I think my main service is the podcast. I know, right?
I agree.
It's thank you, Michael. I don't know how popular of an opinion that is, but it is. And I think recently I've been slacking a little bit. Before this trip, I was slacking a little bit, especially throughout the entire second semester. I mean, I was coasting through second semester senior year in every aspect of my life, like from school to spiritual life to podcast to everything, just chilling, you know. So now it's time to get back to work again. So I think putting a little bit more effort into this. Inshallah, there's a studio coming soon, so I don't have to deal with all this mess. And yeah, so that's kind of for me my next steps. What about you, Michael?
So I'm going to college this semester, and I don't know anyone going to my school. I met a couple people. I just had orientation, thank God, but like no one that's from my previous community. So it's gonna be extremely out of my comfort zone, and it would be very easy for me just to stay in my comfort zone, like, and just like not hang out with people and stuff. But I think God is sending here really to meet new people, to interact with people, like to be a missionary, not like the missionaries we see, but to be like a missionary, just to be like a friendly face to these people. Like, I realize a lot of times the people who I judge are the ones who need the friendly face the most. So just to kind of step out of my comfort zone and like really be myself in this new kind of environment, and just to not be scared. Like, these Cairo servants, they're not scared of anything. Yeah. They're so cool. Like, I can do it. So yeah.
We were making jokes yesterday about a certain situation that happened about not being scared.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
We don't have to talk about what happened. We should not be talking about what happened. But anyways, like, it's the same thing where it's like, you know, you stand up for what's right and for what's good to others, regardless of your surroundings. Anyways, what are your next steps, Isaac?
So last year at Virginia Tech, me and a couple other people started the Coptic club, and I had so much zeal for it and like enthusiasm for it starting off, and it personally, this is a confession, it fell off fast for me. I still did it, but it was more of because I had to do it. It was unfortunately, but I feel like this year it's a disservice for me to do that. Like, I need to be all in, like we said. I need to be all in. I can't just slack on it and be like, oh, like, I'm not coming today. Sorry, guys. But again, that, and also to just like be more serious with my faith and make it my personality. Like, that needs to be my root, because we were talking in a conversation, and basically the moral of that story is we can't have two lives. We can't be a deacon in church and then go out and say these things, do these things. Like, we need to be in Christ all the time. It's not a choice. It's not an option. Like, these Cairo servants don't go back to Cairo and just not serve. Like, You
It's
know
like
what I mean?
service 24/7. Like
It's
liturgy
not
after
like a
liturgy.
switch you turn on and off.
Right.
So I'm in church now. I'm church, and then
yeah, I like what you just said. Liturgy after liturgy. It's
Yeah.
like it's continuous. It never ends. And like it's even in their work, even in their school, in whatever. Like I feel like they're always serving. I think that's something we can definitely learn from, because that idea of services has a set time is not right. Service is always right. There's just some services that are very obvious that have set times, right? Like summer camp, VBS, like Friday night or whatever you guys call it, FNA, whatever you guys call it. Like those are set times for services, liturgy. Like those are set times, but the service is forever, right? Like your dad's a priest, and a funny thing people say is it's like like the priest's job is never over, like from forever. The second you're ordained, forever, you have to be there for people. You have to take confessions. You have to do all these things, and it's not like a question of when I feel like it. You just do it. So it's the same thing. Like as Christians, we never take off our Christian outfit. We're always Christian. There's no off time, right? It's never off. So
Yeah. And
something Father Nathaniel says, and shout out to Father Nathaniel. Something he always says in his podcast is communion begins after the liturgy, and that didn't really make sense to me, but now I kind of see it, where like communion is just like this, like the start, like it takes you here and then you keep going. But so many times for me in my spiritual life, I take communion and then the week goes down like that, and then I take it and it's like mountains.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I like Sunday and then Monday, and I can really build myself up so that the next time I take communion, I get up here,
Yeah. The only thing I was gonna say is, oh my goodness.
2 for 2.
yeah, Isaac. We're leaving this in.
Sorry.
We're gonna leave this part in.
That's good. This podcast needs some comedy.
Oh wow! So he's taking shots at me.
So what I don't pray as seriously is Our Father, and I feel like that's just something we gloss over, and just quickly say. But one of my favorite parts that continues to become my favorite part is saying, "Give us this day our daily bread," and my meaning for it on this trip and for after this trip, amongst other meanings, is that like when we pray that, "Give us this day our daily bread," our goal is to build the kingdom of heaven every day. So like, God, give me what I need to build your kingdom today,
And I like just a quick thing about the glossing over Our Father. The people in the villages who are, a lot of them are illiterate. A lot of them don't know a lot of, their vocabulary isn't large. Our Father for them is it's like their Bible. Like they pray Our Father every second of the day. I mean, like there's literally this one woman who was like, I only pray Our Father, but and the servant was like, why? She's like, well, I don't know much better, but I pray it, like she said, I forgot the number was, a large amount of times per day. And it's like, it has meaning. When she prayed it for us, like it was like it was a personal prayer, but we just kind of sit there and go, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be-" like we just kind of say it and whatever. So I think that's a good point, is we need to focus when we're praying at all times.
Also, another big difference I noticed between Egypt and America is like we were serving the kids and like in America, when you serve the kids, you have to have these elaborate games planned and like very specific rules. Egypt is not like that. Like the kids are so content and so happy with everything you give them. And this isn't like a shot at anything. Like
Yeah.
I'm one of those.
I mean,
kids.
like we were making balloon animals.
Yeah.
And first off, I think it's crazy that we came to Egypt and made balloon animals. I just, they can think about things you do on mission trips, and it's like, that's crazy. And it's like these kids, I remember we were running out of balloons, so I was just making random shapes. I'd tell them, oh, this is a pigeon. This is a platypus. Like, it's just random stuff, and they believe it. Like, not that I'm lying to them, but they're like, oh, and they're like so happy about it. Like, I think I made 5 dogs and said that they were cats because they wanted cats. And it's like, oh, yeah, they're like super happy about it. So it's like, in America, I tried that. I mean, let's not talk about what will happen. So, I mean, yeah, I agree. Very content.
Yeah. the contentment really stuck out to me from the children especially.
Yeah.
And something that like I was making fun of the American kids, but honestly like I'm the same way. Like if I don't get exactly what I want, then if like I'm so upset. But these kids like they didn't like they got something, thank God. Like that's the attitude that I want to come back with from America. Thank God.
I think that's a very great way to end the podcast. Wrap it up. Thank God. Thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing, turning on post notifications.
Oh, one more thing, sorry. We serve with an amazing organization called Shepherd and Mother of Light. Isaiah will put that link in the description. I definitely recommend checking it out.
I will put the link in the description. Make sure to check that out. Make sure to check out the podcast they were in, and whatever other podcast I linked in here. And thank you guys for watching. See you next week. Thank you. Bye.